If our plan to retake the wall is to succeed, you must not be spotted. We're counting on you to handle this discreetly.
I feel like every big dog game developer has that one game series that they're known for, and before Dark Souls, From Software's version of that game was probably Armored Core, the mech shooter series starting all the way back on the PS1 in the year 1997. If you don't know what a mech shooter is, well, read the words again. And now you know. The only mech shooting I did in a game was that really cool scene in MGS4 where you play as Metal Gear Rex and beat the ever-loving Fox Die out of Liquid Ocelot on Metal Gear Ray, and he's all like, Liquid! And he's all like, Snake! And it's like, ah! And then it's like... So you could say this is new territory for me. In the past, I played it very safe with the games that I chose to buy and to play, usually only sticking to series that I was already familiar with, and for a while that was a perfectly fine way to live. And then they made Saints Row 5. Ever since then, I've been taking more risks and playing more stuff that I wouldn't normally consider, so when my friends told me to play Armored Core 6, I was like, alright. For longtime fans of the series, this game is a tremendously huge deal because they haven't had a new game in over a decade, and even though I've never played the series before, I can definitely sympathize with that excitement because that's what Pikmin 4 was for me. The first game in 10 years from a company that spent most of that time prioritizing other games that actually make money. They did a big push with it, they showed it off at the Game Awards, and they got Dwight from The Office doing commercials for the game because the last time Armored Core was relevant was probably back when The Office was still running. Since Armored Core predates Dark Souls and has never once been anything like Dark Souls and has always been basically the complete polar opposite of Dark Souls in every single solitary respect, it's kinda stupid to compare it to Dark Souls, but I've seen a lot of people do it anyway because the game is made by From Software. I think that's the biggest thing going against Armored Core 6 in the court of public opinion and the general audience. A good chunk of people playing this game or wanting to play this game knowing nothing about it might be expecting robot Dark Souls, and then they're gonna have a heart attack when they have to fight this guy and they can't just go somewhere else and farm souls for 3 hours. I'm gonna tell you straight up, anybody who calls this game Robot Dark Souls is a goddamn fiend and a criminal. Probably the biggest flaw with this game for me is the PC port. Even if you exceed the recommended requirements, some CPUs, which of course included the one that I have, require you to go into BIOS and disable hyper-threading for the game to run without unacceptable stuttering issues. I don't think I've ever had to do that for any video game before. That being said, the game is very pretty. Even on medium settings, Armored Core 6 is an audio-visual roller coaster ride. The lighting, particle effects, smoke, explosions, combined with a soundtrack that makes everything feel like a battle to end the fucking Earth. The game truly is an extremely overstimulating and overpowering spectacle, and it reminded me of when I played Doom Eternal the first time. Playing Armored Core 6 is like playing the video game adaptation of a very indulgent Michael Bay CGI film adaptation of an extremely popular mecha anime from the mid-2000s, but with an actually high production value. Basically, if Otacon had a favorite video game, it would probably be this.
It's just like one of my Japanese anime!
But this isn't Otacon's channel, right? This is my channel. So what do I think? It's good. This is a very different kind of game than I'm used to, and since I don't play mech games very much, it's kinda hard to contextualize it in the broader scope of its own genre, but speaking purely from the heart, I did enjoy this game. Even though I never played with Transformers as a kid, this game is like an on-screen personification of what happens in your imagination while you do that. When you're sitting there making explosion noises with your mouth and voicing every character as you blow them up, this is what it looks like in your head. I think the exact moment that I decided this was a good game was when I encountered this mission. The frame rate started to tank, the sand began to thicken up, and in the distance I see this enormous walking tank that looks like an AT-AT walker from Star Wars did a 6-month dirty bulk diet. I'm thinking, there's no way they want me to fight this thing. Turns out that big thing is the whole mission, taking out its legs and then blasting up to the top layer by layer with all these guys shooting at you and you're shooting back at them and it's like and it's like and it's like whoa. That's cool. And right when you think you've seen it all, they make you fight a robot version of the sandworm from Dune. This is such a ridiculously over-the-top video game that people who get really sucked into it are gonna wind up in the hospital. Armored Core 6 is like a very pure and distilled video game. It taps into a very distinctly video gamey attitude that is sometimes frowned upon in an era where video games are being judged on their function as cinematic high art. What's funny about that is that this game can be very cinematic in its own right, but that cinematic quality is far more player-directed than most of the games with that reputation. The real challenge of Armored Core is making the build. Since people keep referencing Dark Souls, the biggest fundamental difference is that you cannot just have it all in Armored Core 6. People always talk about their build in Dark Souls, like how they have a greatsword build or a common Azure build, and the whole time they're talking about that, they're completely glossing over the elephant in the room, which is the fact that it's an RPG, so you can just take 10 hours to farm souls and have an extremely broken everything build. Every single Souls game has an easy mode, as long as you have no other obligations in your life. Armored Core 6 is not quite the same. Even though there are builds that trivialize certain situations, there is always at least one sacrifice being made, and you might not realize just how big of a sacrifice it is until you're actually in the game. The tank legs let you carry a lot more weight and give you way more health, but also make you way clunkier and harder to control, so every little change you make can fundamentally change the way you play the game once you actually deploy. The meat of the game is customization, putting together your armored core and ensuring that you have the right parts to facilitate whatever equipment or items you want to use. It's kinda like building a PC, preferably one that can run the game without requiring you to enter BIOS. On top of choosing your loadout and your build, Armored Core 6 has a ridiculous number of cosmetic options, which allows you to bear your demon soul and express yourself through your armored core, as you fly through the King's Field, looking down at all the chaos. Metal Wolf Chaos. It's not quite as funny as Bloodborne's custom character creator, but you can still make some pretty neat stuff. In particular, the image editor is great for making clickbaity thumbnails. The actual game part is more like a proof of concept, like Tony Stark showing off his cool robots to his investors in some testing ground and then it gets blown up immediately because he's a fucking hack fraud. In Donkey's video, he showed off this build he had with these dual Gatling guns on wheels that he pretty much beat the entire game with, and basically my entire first playthrough was me trying to somewhat replicate that build and then beat the game before From Software nerfs it because I already learned my lesson the hard way when they patched out the Fire Giant cheese. Difficulty-wise, Armored Core 6 is far more forgiving than I expected it to be. Most of the regular enemies are made out of tin cans and rubber bands, and it has a very liberal checkpoint system that restores your health items and ammo. Although the additional layer of resource management with finite ammo adds an extra layer of strategy to it. I remember like a complete dumbass, I actually ran out of ammo fighting this one boss and I had to finish the mission with my bare hands. It was crazy, but also really cool. And a lot of the time, that is the draw of Armored Core. Even in those moments where the game starts to feel easy or shallow, it still looks and feels really cool to just smash it all up. A lot of my difficulties with this game were because I kept forgetting that you could do this. Admittedly, I do not find this to be the type of game that I could pour weeks of my life into, and I don't think it's really supposed to be. It's more like an episodic thing that you can pick up for an hour at a time, and that's fine. Not every video game has to devour your soul for years. The thing that really pissed me off was the ranking system. I feel like I blow through a mission, killing enemies really quickly and efficiently in a brief amount of time, taking 3 damage, and it'll be like, B rank. What do you want from me, man? Who made this game? Miyazaki? The other one? Between the rank system and the customization options and the multiple endings, the game facilitates replayability in a major way, and I look forward to hunting down all the achievements in 300 years. I mean, It's a lot better than farming Titanite slabs. I took a chance on Armored Core 6, and from what I can tell, it was worth it. This is not Game of the Year material for me, but I can definitely see how it would be for a lot of people, and it's one of the few games coming out today that doesn't cost $70, and I value that in a video game. If you're expecting Robo Souls, go play something else. But if you want to tap into that primal gamer urge to fire a trillion missiles at once and watch them go BOOM! You're in for a good time. It's not the best game I played this year, but fans of the series who have been missing it are absolutely in love with it, and for that alone, I have a ton of respect for this game. Armored Core 6 does not conform to general audiences, but instead knows its own audience and loves it very much, which is more than can be said for a lot of games.
Fucking waffles.